He hates me, yet he caught me. Man is good.
He was horny, so he dropped him. Man is evil.
This is my favorite early episode of Community. Community started out in 2009 along with a lineup of great NBC shows, The Office, Parks and Rec, 30 Rock, two of which were in their primes when Community started out, and all three of those shows had a comedy icon at the center of their show. While Chevy Chase is a comedy icon, he wasn't the front bill of Community. So Community had a lot to live up to when it started out. Unlike The Office and Parks and Rec, who had 7-episode season 1s, Community did not have a soft startup. They had a 24-episode first season, which is obviously a big vote of confidence from NBC, but it leaves a lot less room for error should the season not get off to a good start. As a result, there's much less room to focus group characters, play with their motivations, and adjust how audiences react to them in real time. The Office and Parks and Rec are now famous for making big changes to their big, outlandish characters after their soft startups. Michael was too cringy, Dwight was too dumb, Leslie Knope was too ditzy, Andy was too sleazy, Tom was too much like Jim Halpert. Those shows essentially got a tentative season 2 where they hit the ground running with a plan. Community, on the other hand, having a full season, had to hit the ground running from the start, and they did their best. While it's certainly not to the degree of those other shows, you can see that Community doesn't quite know the characters yet in the first 7 or 8 episodes. Essentially, during that time period of launching a new show with a big cast, the writers need to write plots with as many character connections as possible to see if there's any unforeseen chemistry between the actors. So that's why in the early part of the show you see little side plots between Troy and Pierce, Annie and Abed, Britta and Pierce, Jeff and Shirley. It's a screen experiment to see if you can find lightning in a bottle. The show picked larger plots to stick with to get their feet off the ground. Jeff and Britta's romance gets the show going and gives it the energy that it needs to get the group going and on its feet. Annie's crush on Troy is another plot that grounds the show in its infancy. These are the kind of plot lines that are easy for audiences to buy in on. They're similar enough to things that they've seen, but also have a little bit of pessimistic tone about them, because no one is actually in love. Everyone is just crushing on each other for various reasons. Well, it's in the 9th episode of the show that Dan Harmon and Community found the most interesting thing for its viewers to watch. These two. Debate 109 wasn't the first time the show combined Jeff and Annie. The first major plotline together was Football, Feminism, and You, episode 7. Jeff is trying to coerce Troy into playing football, and Annie is trying to coerce him out of it. Both are acting on their own selfish impulses to try and affect Troy's life to their whims. They brought that out of each other and challenged both parties to be more humble and have less control. It was 2 episodes later that the Community crew tried something bolder: sexual tension between Jeff and Annie. The thing is, even from a character creation standpoint, it's easy enough to spot. These two characters are essentially made up of the same vanity that expresses itself in a different light. Jeff wants to come off as cool and nonchalant, while Annie wants to come off as smart and powerful. They both have severed relationships with at least one parent, so they're both subconsciously trying to prove to those parents that they missed out on something. But obviously it takes a lot of courage for a show to experiment with this in the way that Community did, because Jeff is 35 and Annie is 18. But that's precisely why it's funny. Jeff and Annie already had plenty of chemistry on screen in Football, Feminism, and You, and in Debate 109 they took away all the other distractions of Troy and Britta, and they put these two together. That's the thing that Community did arguably much better than many other popular sitcoms. It used the tension between Jeff and Britta to get the show moving and essentially goose the plot of the first season. It also leaned on Annie's crush on Troy to give her motivation to be a part of the study group when she's way too smart for it. Well, that all makes perfect sense. You want to get the plot moving, put the attractive, age-appropriate characters together, but as you move the plot forward, you leaned on what worked above what made traditional sense. Compare that to How I Met Your Mother, or Friends, who felt an obligation to get Ted and Robin together, or Ross and Rachel, even though throughout the duration of those shows, it felt like the characters had moved on from those plots. Still, the shows felt a responsibility to get the characters together. Community was never going to fall into that pressure. It was perfectly comfortable leaning into the taboo of Jeff and Annie. And from there, the show actually also noticed that Troy and Britta make a lot more sense as well. But that's a whole other video. Well, like a smart sitcom would do, it noticed how good the chemistry was for Jeff and Annie, and also challenged this with the accuracy of the characters. Would Jeff do anything with Annie? No, but not because he doesn't want to. And would Annie convince herself that she shouldn't crush on Jeff? She crushed on Troy all of high school without having a chance. Why shouldn't she with Jeff? And so after season 1, when all the focus groups were in, the show decided, what are we going to lean into that worked especially well? We got a lot of Troy and Abed, and we got a lot of Jeff and Annie. Why do Jeff and Annie get along so well? Because they reflect each other's vanity back to each other, and treat each other with the exact vanity that they wish to be treated with. Jeff sees himself as extremely witty and cool and laid back. Nowhere is that brought up more than standing next to Annie, who's also extremely smart, but can set him up for a lot of zingers that make him seem smarter, and also make him seem a lot more cool and laid back by comparison. Likewise, Annie is extremely driven, analytical, and hardworking, but she's also extremely witty. She sees all these things as connected to her sense of morality as well. She thinks more people ought to be like her. So while she does love the way Jeff treats her, she also wants Jeff to change and be more like her. She is slowly proving to Jeff that his nonchalant attitude towards work, school, ethics, etc. are not good enough. She is slowly changing Jeff. Side note, that's another reason why she looks up to Britta, because Britta is also good at changing Jeff. For the rest of the series, these two like to team up for little buddy cop escapades because it allows them appropriate settings for them to express these feelings. For buddy cop situations, these two are a perfect duo. One's a straight-laced rule follower, while one's a renegade. And the two learn from each other. Jeff becomes more caring, and he becomes more loose. And the two of them together are a great team, whose value is greater than the sum of its parts. And this is exactly what Debate 109 was getting at, and not even subtly. Debate 109 is the episode of Community that discovered how great the on-screen tension between Jeff and Annie is. And it does so with no shame, showing an 18 and a 35-year-old making out on screen and leaning into how weird and gross the reality of it is, instead of trying to glance over it to see if we can get the two characters together. Community was a show about people in groups, and how they function, and how they can make us better, and how they can make us worse. But it was never a show about relationships, and it was never a show that felt the responsibility to get its characters together. And I think that's a feature of great comedy writing. Comedy and honesty comes before formula. While Dan Harmon and Community were obligated to put the most interesting things on screen and show us things that would keep our attention, they felt no need to fit the sitcom mold. While Abed proved to be sort of the brain or narrator or audience perspective of the group, Annie and Jeff proved to be the motivator of the group, the motor control, the ones who determined where the plot was going. In the end, a lot of this felt realistic, and it ends up showing us a lot of what college is actually like, in that people of like minds can find and create ways to hang out, whether it be appropriate or not. Jeff entered a debate contest to get a parking spot, but ended up getting 6 seasons in a movie of titillating romance that went nowhere. I hope you enjoyed this video. If this is the first one you've seen, feel free to check out my channel, Chet's Favorite Movies. I've been working hard over the last few weeks to create a channel and a content library of content that I'd be excited if I came across on YouTube. Let me know of your favorite Jeff and Annie plot lines and anything that you'd like to see me talk about with regards to Community in the future. I really hope you enjoyed. I'm Chet Popelka, and Community is one of my favorite shows.